All right, and welcome back to the Create Studios podcast. I'm your host with the most, Jordan Mode, and today we are going to have an epic conversation in the world of recording, as well as TV and film, and really all around in the music realm. Today we have with us a very special guest. He's been here every once in a while, comes and checks us out. A fellow Full Sail grad, and honestly, probably going to be one of the most impactful episodes we've ever had. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the recording great Chris Thomason of Insight Studios. Chris, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Thanks so much. So glad to be here.
We're glad to have you here, man. And today is going to be all about Chris. We want to hear about, obviously the highs and lows, but we want to really dive into, the true, knit and grit of what got you to, where you are today. And honestly, we'll talk about, what you're doing now and what got you there. But for people maybe who don't know who you are, would you be able to give a brief background?
Yeah. How far do you want me to go back? I was born. No. I
love it.
I grew up in the Northwest Alabama.
Like Muscle Shoals?
That's the area. That's where I grew up. And in that area, there are 4 cities there in that area that count as kind of the whole there. The Tennessee River runs through it. And I grew up in a great home. My mom and dad were so supportive and encouraging of everything I did. And I got the music bug very early on in my life, at church mainly. And then went into high school. I played drums. I was in choir. I did some theater things. And then Muscle Shoals, as everybody probably knows, if you haven't seen the documentary, you need to see it. It's pretty remarkable what actually happened there. It was called the Hit Recording Capital of the World in the late 60s and early 70s. Still has the signs when you come into Muscle Shoals. It says, "Welcome to the Hit Recording Capital of the World." It was pretty remarkable with Aretha Franklin and the Rolling Stones and that was before my time. I wasn't involved in that, and I'm not in the documentary, by the way. So, but when I was 16, I joined the Muscle Shoals Music Association, and they had a student version of that, and so you could go to all these events as a member, and one of those things were songwriting classes. So every Thursday night, I got to go to a songwriting class at Muscle Shoals Sound.
Oh, that's so cool,
Studios,
man.
And so it was really an amazing experience. And this, by the way, the original studios where a lot of that stuff was recorded was a very small place.
Yes, it was.
Over on Jackson Highway. But after they became highly successful, they built a bigger studio, multi-room studio. And that was the one I was at because I was later coming in there. But during that period of time, I met these 3 songwriters and performers, Lenny LeBlanc, Ava Aldridge, and Cindy Richardson. And that was my first taste of ever walking into a studio, actually. And I got the bug really bad.
Man, talk about a great first start, though.
Yeah, I mean, walking into that studio, it was like, oh, this is how they do it. It was like I had no clue because I was into music and I was playing music as far as like normally what a lot of people do in middle school and high school and performing at church and doing that sort of thing. But I really had never crossed my mind of actually how you made a record, right? And so it was truly phenomenal. So I got the bug, and and my wife will still say this to this day is like, from then on, it's like every morning when I got up, all I wanted to do was go to the studio. That's all I ever wanted to do, right? Creates things. Graduated from high school, went to Auburn University. And got a music degree. And so I was a double major, voice and composition at Auburn, and thought I wanted to become an artist and get out there.
The rock star thing. Yep.
Yeah. And so I got out of college, went back to Muscle Shoals, and was actually doing some stuff there, writing some songs and recording some things
at the studio itself.
At different studios. It wasn't Muscle Shoals Sound, but it was a different studio there in Muscle Shoals. And my buddy, who I'd made friends with, Lenny LeBlanc, was there. And Lenny said, what are you thinking about all this? And I said, well, I really love the art of starting with an idea and how you pull a team together and they all come in the studio and make this thing happen. It was so. I don't know what the word would be. It really gave me a passion for creating, right?
Yeah.
And I loved being around the creative and the collaboration of that and how you actually were taking an idea and then really kind of a blank canvas and then you paint the picture, right?
Absolutely.
And so Lenny had signed a record deal. He used to be on Atlantic Records. He had a big, huge song in the late 70s called Falling, and he was on Dick Clark and The Tonight Show, and he did all the stuff. LeBlanc and Carr was the name of his group, and he traveled the world. And he had signed a new record label deal, and he said, you need to meet my buddy, John Phelps.
Oh, wow.
And it was John Phelps' record label at that time. John had created this record label. And he said, John has started this thing in Orlando called Full Sail. He said, I think that would be a great thing. So there I go. I went off to Orlando.
How was that experience, like meeting John Phelps for the first time?
It was phenomenal. Anybody who's ever met John, he's just such a nice guy and incredibly passionate about everything he does. Yeah. But specifically, it was really interesting. And that's where I met, for the first time, Gary Jones.
Yep.
And Gary was teaching a lot of my main classes at that point in time. And Jay Noble, if you know Jay Noble.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And Jay became a really good friend of mine. And Full Sail was a really eye-opening experience for me because I had all the or a lot of the elements. I'm not going to say I had it all, but I had a lot of the creative element, music side, theory, and the playing and performing.
The degree? Absolutely.
But I didn't have the technical side, and so it was a great place for me to really dive into that and learn, and gave me the confidence that when I left there, through another Full Sail person said, "Hey, you ought to go to Nashville and you ought to try this out." And it just so happened I went back to Muscle Shoals. A friend of mine who was a youth pastor at a church said, "Hey, we're going to this concert. We'd love for you to go to this concert with us." So I went to this concert. It was at the University of North Alabama.
Okay.
And I went to this concert, and afterwards I went up and met the artist, who was somebody that I kind of had seen and knew his records. His name was Paul Smith. And he said, "Well, what do you do?" And so I said, "Well, this is what I went to college. I just came through Full Sail and trying to figure." He said, "Well, man, you ought to come to Nashville." And he said, "Actually, my keyboard player is looking for a roommate. You should go talk to him."
It's crazy how that works.
And so I went and talked to Joe, who's his name, and Joe said, "Yeah, I'm actually going to start looking at apartments tomorrow. You should come up." So I went to Nashville the next day.
When was this? Like
this would have been kind of late 1986.
Oh, so this is like vintage Nashville.
Yeah, vintage Nashville. And I ended up, there was a Full Sail guy. His name was Michael Kariba, and he was working at a studio in Music Row called Digital Studios at that time.
Okay.
And I went to see him, and he said, "Hey, man, I got to go across the street. I'm borrowing some cue boxes from a studio across the street. You should go with me over there, and you could see that studio." So I went over and was helping him carry. That's really what he wanted, was helping him carry
help,
stuff.
Yeah.
And so I went over and met those people, met the studio manager. Her name was Wendy. And she said, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, looks like I'm moving to Nashville, and I just graduated from Full Sail, and this is what I'm doing." And she said, "Well, we have an internship open. Do you want to do an intern?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think so. That'd be great." I don't know what that means really, but yeah. And so I got this internship. And it's a pretty classic music business story. I was there for 6 months, rolling cables and taking out the garbage and
getting coffee, and
cleaning the toilets, and getting takeout for the musicians and all the stuff. And we did mainly jingles there, like Dodge, Pepsi, Wrigley's. Cool. That's what it was. It was a unique environment because the main offices were here in Nashville, but they had offices in Chicago and New York, and they were working with the big ad agencies.
That's super cool.
At that time. And so I was there for about 6 months, and Wendy called me. She was the studio manager. She called me. She said, "Hey, one of the engineers is sick and can't come in for the session in the morning. How would you feel about doing the session?" And of course you go, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The answer is always yes.
Always yes.
And so I said yes. And I literally stayed up all night in that room, making sure I knew where everything
Studying
was,
everything, yep.
Make sure the microphone, the signal was working, and all the stuff, and make sure I knew where everything was. And so it was a demo for a Dodge pickup truck or something.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my first paid gig in Nashville.
Heck
and
yeah.
Side note of that, the guy that got sick was a guy named Joe Baldridge. Joe now runs all of Ocean Way Studios here in town.
Oh, no way.
He's a great engineer, is a great
Ocean
engineer,
Way's beautiful.
I should say. And he runs all of that over there now. And so I always say, Joe's the reason I got into the business because he got sick. And so not long ago, we were telling the story. He said, I remember that. I got food poisoning and I couldn't make it in. Yeah, I do remember that. And I was like, I didn't give you the food poisoning. I don't want anybody to think I sabotaged.
I might have brought the food in, but it wasn't me.
So I didn't do the gig. I didn't get the gig because I gave you food poisoning. But anyway, so that was kind of the start. That's how I got from Full Sail to here.
Oh, that's cool.
That was the beginning part of it, yeah.
And there's so much I want to unpack here because like you would like put a little nugget in there. I'm like, oh, I have a question there. I want to dive back real quick to your time in Muscle Shoals because I'm such a Muscle Shoals freak, and I was curious when you were walking through those studios because like when I first walked into Fame and Muscle Shoals Sound, the one thing I realized was like after watching the documentary was. And you walk in there, and it is just a room, but there's something about that room that just embodies creativity and just there's an energy to it.
Yeah.
And I remember I was there a couple years ago for the Swampiversary event they did, and I remember they had one of the Swampers that was still alive there. And
David Hood, probably, right?
Yep. And he was talking about just like he said the same thing. He's like, when you walk into Fame or Muscle Shoals, there's just this energy that's in the room, and it's just like you feel like you're onto the cusp of something amazing. And I really gravitate towards studios that still have that vibe. It's
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, you can't. It's hard to put it into words sometimes because you can't recreate a lot of times these special moments. And I think if you asked any of those guys when it was happening, they were enjoying it and they were working hard.
Exactly.
But they probably didn't realize exactly
how big it was going to be.
How big and what it was in that moment. And I think that's part of all of our lives, right?
Yeah.
It's the reason you have to sit back and go, man, you need to enjoy where you are right now.
Yeah.
Because one day you're going to look back and go, man, those were the good old days.
That was the best day of my life.
That's right. That was the good old days. Well, these are the good old days now, what we're doing now. You and I sitting here, this is a great experience. This
exactly.
Is great. So I would say it was unique to those people that were there and in that moment. Because if you looked at those guys, it was really interesting. Jimmy Johnson, who was the guitar player.
Oh, Jimmy Johnson's awesome.
My mom knew his mom really well, and even when I was in high school, I got to go to their house and be a part of just hearing from his parents' perspective what he was doing, right? But if you looked at Jimmy Johnson, you could have thought he was an accountant. I mean, he wore kind of button-up shirts and wore glasses and he didn't look like the super cool musician guy most of the time. You can look in those pictures and see him, but man, those guys, the grooves and the playing and the creativity. And they figured out the recording thing.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at those rooms now, most studios, you would go in there and you would go, how did they record that Paul Simon record in this room or this Linda Ronstadt record in this room? And it's really remarkable. And what I think is, and I don't know if you know the story of when Aretha Franklin wanted to record with those guys.
Oh, was it Our Respect, right?
Yeah. And she got down there and they were all white guys. And she was like, this is not the right people. These are not the people. And they're like, no, these are the guys who played on all those records, right?
Yeah.
And then there you are. She does RESPCT and all, all the
Rest
stuff.
Is history, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it's a good point you make, is that the environment and the creativity that's created in an environment is not just about the building.
No.
Of course, we know all the technical stuff.
Yeah.
We need great rooms and built rooms and quiet rooms and technically specced out. You want all that stuff. But it really does come down to the magic that happens between people.
Oh, yeah. And
right?
that's why I still think the studio aspect's so important.
It is.
Yeah, home recording is great, but when you're in the room with a good engineer, a good musician, a good singer, it's like you can't pay for that.
Yeah,
there's nothing that money can buy when that vibe is there.
I'm with you. And that's part of the creative process for sure.
When you decided to make the jump to Nashville, was that an easy decision for you? You're like, yep, I'm going to do it. It is what it is. Or was it like, man, do I want to do this? Did you have any was there any oh, I don't know, maybe I should hold back and not do this?
Well, for me, it was an interesting process because I didn't know what I wanted, really. I mean, I knew that I wanted to be in the studio. I knew that I wanted to be involved in creating music. And for me, I also, from my perspective, I was creating music that was also about my faith. It was about, and that was mainly where I was headed, was toward the Christian music side of things.
Very cool.
And I had really kind of thought about going to LA.
Really?
Because actually at that point in time, a couple of the big Christian record companies were out there. Also, this is going to be horrible blasphemy to say this here sitting in Nashville, but I wasn't a country music fan. And I did not want to come to Nashville because I was like, man, I just don't want to be in country music.
Especially during that time, yeah.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with it. I got plenty of friends who are in the country music stuff. It just wasn't me, and it wasn't the kind of music that I had been playing. I was more on the pop R&B side of things.
Sure.
And coming from Muscle Shoals, that was kind of a lot of that influence.
What happens there, yeah.
There, and so that's kind of where I was headed, and I can really say that. The doors just opened for me to be in Nashville. And later, it became fairly obvious that was a guiding on my behalf, because all of the Christian music world ended up here in Nashville.
Isn't that crazy?
Right,
how that happened?
and so that's kind of interesting that all the California stuff moved to Nashville, and so I ended up being in the heart of actually the place where I wanted to be.
And then I know there's some people here in Nashville who probably laugh at your last statement about all the Californians coming out here.
Well, you can't throw a rock. You can't go out here and not find somebody who's from California at this point. So, yeah.
It's funny you say that how that drew you here, because when I graduated Full Sail, I almost went back to the New York City, Philly area, because that's where I'm from, and I was going to take a stab at the film music world out there, and if it wasn't for my buddy who happened to move back out here and he's like, hey, I got an extra room, do you want to come check it out?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, sure, why not? We'll see what happens. I was literally serving tables, so let's go do it. And I came out here and I remember just falling in love with this area because of it just seemed like there were so much possibilities.
Yes.
And I'm like, maybe Nashville's not really what I want to do, but it seems like God's pointing me towards here.
Yeah.
And within 2 weeks of moving out here, I had gotten a call from a studio out here. His name's Josh Diamond. Great guy, love the dude to death. And he owns Diamond Sound in North Nashville. And he's like, hey, I'm looking for a sound engineer. One of your buddies named Zach kind of hinted your name. Would you want to come and check it out?
Awesome.
So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Thinking nothing of it. I walk out there and I just walked into this massive rehearsal studio. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'm a Full Sail guy. He's like, we're looking for a guy to do nighttime sound engineering. Would you want to do it? And I was like, yeah. So I was like, yeah. He's like, okay, so you're going to start on Thursday. Come in and check it out. I come in, the guy's like, hey, I'm actually going on tour with some big guy. I'm not here to help you.
Yeah.
We had an artist coming in, and I call up Josh, and I'm like, hey, man, the guy's kind of heading out. What do I do? He's like, well, this is your chance, man. Figure it out. It's up to you to and I really had never done a lot of sound engineering at that point. I was music production grad. Sure. And I was like, well, I'm sure we can figure this out. So I walk in, there's a Midas M32 console there, and I'm like, okay, this seems pretty easy enough. I pull out a YouTube video, and I'm like, I got 15 minutes to make it seem like I know this. So I'm doing everything I need to, and I'm like, okay, I got this. And then they walk in, and the guy's like, hey man, we just need 2 mics and a DI. I call him like, really? You said this was a full band with in-ears? He's like, I was testing you and you passed.
That's great.
Small world, man.
That's great. It's also the Full Sail way, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, we got you. Yeah. Okay, I got to learn how to do this real quick. But yeah, we got you. What's going to happen?
But it's that real world application, because like even when we came and opened up Create It here, it's like there was so much I had been not doing in the industry, and you're like, hey, you got to be able to teach this. You got to be able to fix this. Like, and it's so refreshing because I love to learn. So for me, it's one of those entrances where it's like, yes, throw me in the deep water. Let me see if I can do this or not.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's flash forward. So now so you're in Nashville. You're working in the studios. At this point, were you like, yeah, I've made it, or were you like, this is cool, but like, what's the next step?
Yeah, I would never say that. Yeah. I'm not still sure I would say that.
Okay.
I think what happened for me is it was an incredible learning experience there. We had 2 studios at Hummingbird Studios. That was the name of the studio. And we were kind of cranking around the clock, doing all these jingles and doing all this stuff. But the cool thing about it is I get to meet all these musicians and engineers and producers that, by the way, a lot of these people I still work with till this day.
Which is awesome.
So, people that you kind of meet in the industry and kind of grow up with them. And I learned so much. Jingles is an interesting world because you're basically in a day creating what you would do for an album.
Yep.
In a very short period of time. So you're cutting the tracks, you're doing the overdubs, you're doing the BGVs, you're doing the lead vocal, you're doing the mixing, and then back then a lot of times we had to have that stuff out, and back then it was either FedEx or airborne. It had to go out that night to wherever it was going, right?
Yeah.
Because you were a lot of these were demos that were being written to pitch for the bigger commercials, right?
Heck yeah, yeah.
And so that's what was happening. So it was an incredible learning environment. And then this also, the studio was owned by some guys that did a lot of stuff in the Christian music world, and so there were a lot of albums that would come in there and be cut in the A room and vocals and things. So I got exposed and got to meet a lot of people, and it was really great. And then my buddy, who I told you about, that was Full Sail, Michael Kariba guy, we stayed in touch, and one day he called me, and he had been at another studio here in town managing and engineering at Goldmine Studios.
Okay.
And he called me and said, hey, I'm moving over to Omni. Would you be interested in this gig?
Omni, wow.
And so I said yes, and I just gotten married, and so it was a bump in pay, and plus the studios were built in a basement of this house in Brentwood that was, and it was a dedicated recording facility, but the upstairs came with it to live. So my wife and I got to live, in there, and incredible experience.
That's cool,
all of
man.
These. Producers and engineers that would come through, Keith Thomas, who produced all the early BB and CC Winans records, and a lot of pop hits. David Foster worked there. I got to be around a lot of that stuff. A quick funny story was our bedroom was over the control room.
Oh, okay.
And so, you couldn't really hear a lot, but you could definitely feel the low end a lot of the times. That was what was happening there. So one night it was like they were doing a BB and CC record, and my wife said, that doesn't sound like CC singing. And I was like, well, that's who they're recording. So it was about midnight.
Yeah.
They were down there recording. And so the next day I said to Keith, I said, hey, I said, you guys were doing vocals last night. He said, yeah. He said, sorry about that. We kind of went late. I said, it's no problem. There's no big deal. I said, we were just listening and thought we heard, we weren't sure that was CC. He said, oh, it wasn't CC. It was Whitney Houston. And so they brought Whitney, and she came in at midnight to do her vocals on that record. And so
it's in your house, like Whitney Houston's in my house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so got to meet a lot of people there and work there. And then left there, and there were 3 or 4 other guys that I did a lot of work with here in town, and we started our own studio over in Berry Hill area here in town, and built out a studio, and we're producing records. And about half of what we were doing for labels and about half were independent stuff. We're doing that.
It's crazy how big Berry Hill got to, even recently with the studios. It's unbelievable out there.
It's about to get bigger too.
It is, yeah. Because I know Jonathan Cain's got a studio out there, and it's amazing what they're doing, man.
The plans are Universal's going to build something massive over there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think they're building a scoring stage that'll host it's really the weakness of Nashville right now. There's not a place to record a full orchestra in Nashville. Our A room, which we haven't gotten to the studios yet, but our A room holds about 35.
Okay.
Ocean Way holds about 65. And so those are the two biggest rooms in town for any orchestra stuff. So you got to do it in pieces. You can do double and triple stuff, and bring pieces in.
But to get a full orchestra, I mean, that's come on. I feel like it is surprising Nashville doesn't have a spot for it.
It needs one. Yeah, it needs one. Well, it's just the history of the city just didn't call for it. Really, it hadn't been in L.A. or in New York or a London really on that level of things, and most of the soundtrack stuff for films were done L.A. and London, really, for the most part.
Oh, I mean, come on now. Look at the studios in London. I mean, it's built for that. Tailor-made.
That's right.
That's so cool, man. We're going to take a quick break here with Chris Thomason, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. And welcome back to the Create Studios podcast. We're hanging out with Chris Thomason of Insight Studios here today, having an epic combo about the recording industry and everything in between. Before we dive back in, I just want to say a special shout out to Future Beam Coffee. Every time I'm walking into Create Studios, I'm always getting a cup of Joe and getting my day started with them. Honestly, probably some of the best coffee I've had in some time now. Move over, Duncan. There is a brand new coffee in town. So, Chris, we just kind of wrapped up kind of talking about, you kind of getting into, it was Omni for a little bit you were talking about.
Goldmine Studios.
Goldmine, that's right. So sorry. Yeah. And now, where are we at now in your career? Where are we going to next?
Then I think I said we owned a studio over in Berry Hill for about 4 years. And then I got a call from a friend who was working for Integrity Music.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And asked me if I was interested, and we looked at that and felt like it was being led of God, that's where we were supposed to go, which was interesting because it was in L.A., Lower Alabama.
Oh,
that's where it was.
The other L.A.
The other L.A. The owner and founder had started the company in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And so amazingly, we went down there and taught to them. Incredible studios, by the way, down there. They had Stork Design, if you know that Walter Stork
I don't
company.
know.
Walter Stork Company. Actually, he was one of the guest lecturers at Full Sail when I was there.
Oh, very cool.
He's designed some amazing studios around the world, their company. And that was their studios down there were designed. It was like you walked in this and you were like, whoa. I'm not in Nashville or L.A., not the real L.A., but here I am in Lower Alabama, and there's this incredible studio there. And but I worked with the songwriters, then A&R, and then became head of creative there, and then over the 5 record labels that were there. We were distributed by Sony in New York.
Oh, wow, okay.
Provident distribution here in Nashville. And so I was over product development, production, A&R, studios, and publishing.
Oh, wow.
And then ultimately marketing and distribution. So we had offices in the UK, Australia, Singapore, and South Africa, and we were doing indigenous recordings in all of those countries as well.
That must have been sick.
So we had one of the labels, Hosanna Music, we were recording live somewhere every 8 weeks. For that label. And so during that period of time, we were averaging between the 5 record labels, we were doing 75 to 100 records a year, something like that. And so myself and a guy named Don Moen, who's a good buddy of mine, we were executive producers over those products and what we were doing there. And so we had a team of about 50 people. And so we were very fortunate to lead a lot of incredible creatives and developing products. And so did that. I did that until 2005. That was almost 14 years I was there. Yeah. And we sold about 40 million units worldwide. And
wow.
Grammy Awards and Stellar Awards and Dove Awards and all sorts of things. It was a great ride. It was a lot of fun. And then in 2005, I left there and started Insight Media, which is our company now. And Insight is spelled INCIIITE, if you can see it right there, Insight on the thing there. And so, so I started that in 2005, and my family moved back to Nashville. We're here in Franklin, Tennessee, where Created is. It's a great place to be. So we started that. And so we have 4 divisions of the company. We started out with, because of my background, music production and distribution of that. And then we've got in 2010, we took over a company out of San Francisco that was doing conferences and events that were being streamed, and they were mainly done by satellite. And we took that over and flipped it to an internet-based company. And so we've done since then about 200 events around the world, and we do those licensed events live and on demand. So we do production, the marketing, the customer service, the broadcast, and all that of all those conferences. And so some of them are really big and some are small. In 2020, we did an event on the National Mall during COVID, by the way.
Man, what was that like?
It was crazy. If you do anything on the National Mall, by the way, from a production standpoint, there are 7 authorities that have jurisdiction over the National Mall. The National Park Service has the main jurisdiction, but you got the Secret Service, and you've got the Metro DC Police. You've got all these people that are over that. And so we had about 100,000 people on the mall. 15 million streams, 174 countries that participated in that event, and so it was a great 2-day event we did there. And so that division of our company, Insight Events, is the name of that division. Does all sorts of live, even in studio stuff, and then live events that we broadcast out. And so those are usually licensed events to organizations, churches, schools, things like that. And so I've got a whole team. That's all they work on. And then we've got a film and TV development side of what we do. And our partner on that is a good buddy of mine in Atlanta, Carl Horstman, and he owns a company called Triple Horse Studios. And they've got a 50,000 square foot facility in Atlanta that has 2 sound stages, 4 post rooms, and a 150 seat screening room. And so Carl and I have been in development on some films, some documentaries. We're finishing up a documentary right now on Adam Wainwright, who was the starting pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals for about 16 years. Adam's also on our label side, and we've done a record with him. It's a country record.
He does country music?
Yeah, that's what he does, and a really great guy. And so we've had him on the Grand Ole Opry a couple of times. We did a thing on the Today Show this past year, and then he's touring and doing some things like that. But we're doing a documentary on his life, his baseball career, transitioning to music, which will come out next year.
Oh, that's exciting, man.
So we're working on that right now. And then the last part is probably what a lot of people who are watching this will be more interested in is that in January of 22, we bought a recording studio facility here in town. It's 22,000 square feet on 3 acres. Here we have 5 studios in the building. It was originally built by a guy that was wanting to do post audio for film work. And when he built the place, which was 23 years ago, there just wasn't a lot of that going on in Nashville. And so about 10 years ago, he moved to LA, built another studio in LA to do what he was doing. But I had worked at the studios, a lot of music done there. I'd worked at the studio when I was with Integrity and produced 4 or 5 records there over the years, and always loved it. It was way different than the vibe was different than what a lot of studios here in Nashville were. And by the way, if you've never been to studios in Nashville, some of the greatest in the world.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's incredible. The greatest place. It's the greatest creative community, and I've got friends in other places. No offense to anybody else in any other cities, but I'm partial to Nashville. It's a great collaborative, innovative, creative community, and I love being here. But this studio, this particular studio, was designed by Russ Berger.
Okay.
Russ has designed about 400 studios around the world,
Wow.
and this was a purpose-built studio. So it wasn't a building that was modified, which a lot of studios, unfortunately, a lot of times you're coming into a building and you're having to modify the building, and there's certain things you can't do with that. But this was purpose-built. So all the rooms are floating, sealed rooms. They're designed to perfection. The air handling system, everything was designed to be a studio. So our A room is pretty large. I think I mentioned earlier we can fit about a 35-piece orchestra in that room,
Which is amazing.
But it's great for cutting tracks with bands and that sort of thing. In that room right now, today, we've got an SSL 9000K 80-channel board in that room, and it is wired for 7.1 surround sound in that room.
Yeah.
So you can do up to 7.1 in that room. Dyne audio speakers in that. The M4s are in the walls, the LCR, and just remarkable sounding room. The 9000K XL, which is the console in there are only 55 of those in the world. Dang. And it's original to the building, and incredibly wonderful vintage console. It's my understanding Dr. Dre has 5 of them. So out of the 55 in the world,
you got some rare air there, yeah.
We know that's for us. We're in the process of changing that.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to go to the new Neve Genesis Black. It'll be 96 inputs, 64 faders, and we'll be able to do some things. Digitally controlled analog. If you don't know that board, it's really remarkable. And so we're going to be doing that probably beginning of the year, because it takes a while to get it manufactured.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so they're manufacturing it specifically for our room, which we're really excited about. Our B room is our Dolby Atmos room. We're our large one. We're 9.1.4 in that room.
Yeah.
It is a mirror control room to A. Except we've got the Avid S6, which is kind of the flagship for Atmos, and it is a designed and tuned room by Dolby.
Heck yeah!
And we've got a large ISO booth there in that room too, and we do a lot of post audio, ADR, voiceover. Some of our clients are Sony and Disney and Netflix and Paramount and a lot of those clients that work in that room. We also deliver a lot out of that room we've delivered to Netflix and Amazon and other Hulu, some other streaming channels out of that room for mixing and Atmos. Mixed a good bit of music Atmos in that room too.
Especially where everything's going nowadays.
Or as Apple likes to say, spatial.
Spatial audio.
Here in the South, we think they're very spatial. It's a bad joke. It's a
fantastic joke.
It's a bad joke. Anyway, so we've got that room. Then our C room is another Atmos room, smaller Atmos room. By the way, B is all Dyne audio in that room too, specially designed for that room. And then our C studio is a smaller room, and it's 9.1.4 as well, all Neumann speakers in that room. And then we've got a small ISO booth in there, and we do a lot of voiceover, vocals in there. Jill Scott was in there this year. She did 30 days of vocals on her new records in that room. And then we do a lot of audiobooks.
Oh, that's cool.
About 25% of what we do is audiobooks. Simon & Schuster.
Isn't that
Harper
crazy
Collins.
how that's coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it's exploding, and I see why. I mean, I'll be in my car and I listen to a lot of audiobooks or podcasts on the way to work and back now, and so it's just a great way. Or I'm doing yard work, I'll put on an audiobook and listen to stuff. It's a great thing. So we do a lot of that there. And then we've got a video editing suite that we do. That's the other studio there. And then we have 2 rooms One's a control room and an ISO booth that we house the guys who do all the music for the Chosen series on
Which is
Amazon.
super cool.
And so great guys, and they're working on that. And then they're starting to work on a new, I think it's been announced. I don't think I'm breaking any rules here. They're working on an animated series of the Chosen, which will be coming next year. So
how does it feel to be like the guy who's like kind of overseeing this now and kind of all of this? It's like, this is me. This is my legacy. Like, how does that feel?
Humbling. It's an honor, that I get to be a part of doing that. I think all those things we talked about, when you start looking at a career, you're looking at what you're doing, sometimes you never know the things that you're doing, how it's going to affect your future. But I can look back now, all those things, even back to Full Sail, even back to Auburn, getting my music degree, all those pieces fit in the puzzle of what this picture has become, right? And for instance, at Integrity, I was over the 5 record labels. I told you earlier, all I ever wanted to do was get up every morning and go to a studio.
Yeah.
That's all I ever wanted to do. All of a sudden, I find myself in charge of this division of this company, which, by the way, as you guys know, you heard my history, I don't have a MBA from Duke or Stanford in business. It wasn't who I was. I didn't go to school for that. I had some great people we hired. By the way, it's a really smart thing to hire people smarter than you around you.
Of course.
For all of that stuff. And that's part of the secret of running anything is that you're not the smartest person in the room.
Agreed.
You hire people that are better than you around you. And in this case, what I was learning during those years at Integrity, we were a publicly held company on NASDAQ.
Really?
And so I'm sitting at a desk and I'm going, what am I doing here?
What's going on?
What am I doing? But what it did was I learned a lot that set me up for insight and starting this company and running the company and that sort of thing. And it's a unique industry we're in, right? Too, because it is a business. You got to run it as a business, but it's also you're leading creatives.
Yeah.
Right. And so leading creatives, and I are one. So, that's a unique space to be in. And so you learn processes that help not only do what you need to do, but get it across the finish line for the business to run to. And
that's so good.
That's a very, I think there's a lack of kind of conversations around that in a lot of places. And I think it's very important. It's very important to learn how the process of how you create something. And so I get the honor and the privilege of all of the expertise and experience that God allowed me to have up to this point to lead this incredible place and this incredible group of people that I get to work with. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. And kind of goes back to you growing up in Muscle Shoals, that was kind of the same mentality that they had out there was we're going to do it on our own and we're going to find a way to make it. And what we don't know, we're going to learn how to do it.
That's right.
I think that's so cool, man. And thank you so much for being on this podcast with us today,
thanks
man.
For letting me be here,
man. That was an incredible journny, dude. I'm just honored to be sitting next to you, man. This is amazing.
I'm grateful and honored to be here, and it's one of those things where when you do look back at your life, you see the pieces that you go, oh wow, that didn't make sense at that moment, but now it
does. Yeah,
now it kind of makes more sense.
It's funny how God puts those things on us, where it's like, why am I here? Why am I here? And then also you're like, oh, that tracks a lot.
yeah, that's exactly right.
So the one thing I love to do, Chris, at the end of our podcast is always, obviously you've been dropping amazing nuggets throughout the entire episode, but the one thing I love to always ask is maybe there's a younger version of you out there right now that's like, hey, I'm trying to make my mark, and obviously the recording industry is way different than when it was when you got in. What would be some advice that you would give to these guys who maybe are trying to find that next step in the industry? What would you have to say?
Yeah, well, it's a hard question, but it's also a question that everybody probably has from their experience in life. They've got a little bit of a different take on. For me, one thing is become skilled at what you do, and I've got a life proverb. And the life proverb is this. It's from Proverbs 22:29. It says this: "Do you see someone skilled in their labor? They will stand before kings and not just common people." And so there's this point, and there have been these books out there that have stated this. You need 10,000 hours to become skilled at something. When you look at becoming skilled, even if you don't see where that's going right now, but if you become skilled at what you do, there will be doors that open up for you.
Yeah.
But and I truly believe that's very important to become skilled. And you and I would highly recommend a Full Sail for that.
Absolutely.
But there are a lot of other great places to go too. And so I think that's one thing, become skilled. Even if you're not in school, there's so much at our fingertips now from a technology standpoint to become skilled at what you do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to really have a great work ethic. And we see both sides of this in our company, the studios specifically. We have lots of interns who come through.
I'm sure.
Right? And so, and it's good news and bad news. The good news is you get people to come in and they're getting some experience and they're seeing some things. The bad news about it is that a lot of these people haven't been taught to have a work ethic.
It's true.
So they don't show up on time. They don't do what they say they're going to do, or they do just enough to get by.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. I think it's very important for you to have a work ethic and apply yourself to learning. This is part of becoming skilled, right?
I couldn't agree more.
A great attitude, a servant attitude of like, hey, what do you need? What can I do to help? And our team, I want that from not just interns. I want that from employees too.
Absolutely.
They want it from me too. So I'm running the company, but hey, man, if we need to do something, I'll get in there and do it because we're all a part of making things happen. So that's the other thing. And then what I would say is, have a positive outlook and a positive attitude in what you're doing, and I just believe doors will start opening for you. Also networking, relationships are a big deal.
I agree.
Right? So I tell people a lot of times, and this is probably overstating or exaggerating just a bit, is that 90% of this business is relationships.
Oh yeah, it is.
Now, when you get the opportunity, that other 10%, as I said, you got to be skilled at what you do.
Got to be ready to go.
And you got to be ready to go, and you got to prove yourself.
Opportunity means preparation.
Those are the things that I think that are good about that. And then the last point, and sorry, I'm probably going longer.
Oh, you're fine, man. No, please.
But the last point I would say is figure out the why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I always encourage people to come up with a personal mission statement. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And by the way, it will keep you on track for a lot of things because we have that for our company. Why do we do what we do? And so we have a mission statement, right, for the company. And so when we have opportunities that come along, the question is, do they line up with why we do what we do? It doesn't mean they're bad things that come along, but sometimes we've had some things that come along and you think, man, that can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it doesn't line up with why we do what we do.
Exactly.
So you have to say, hey, I think this is awesome. I think it's a great idea. I think you could even make a lot of money doing what you're doing, but it's not right for us.
That's huge.
And what it does is it keeps us on track for what we're doing as a company and the reasons that we're doing it, and that really pays off in the long term.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, we've done this podcast now. This is the 20th episode, and I've always loved asking that question. But that one I resonate with so much because it always goes back to the fact of like, you're determined to make it and do whatever that make it is for you. But it's like, are you going to sell yourself just so you can say you can do that? Like, if it doesn't line up with your goals and values, then why are you doing it? Yeah. Like, that is so good, man. Yeah. Like, man, you kind of testified in here. Like, whoo.
That's my job.
But, Chris, that was amazing. But, where can people find you? Let's say, hey, like, I want to work at, I want to come do a studio at Insight, or like, where can people find Insight? Where can they find you? Where,
Yeah. The easy thing is, the name of our company is spelled INCIITE. And so there's insight.com. That's the overall company, the media company. And you can go there, and there are links to the studios and everything. But direct link to the website for the studios, insightstudios.com. You can go there and for that. And then if you want to read a little bit about me, I don't know if you did or not, but if you did, it's christhomason.com, which is, my last name is spelled Thomason. So christhomason.com.
That's amazing. Yeah. Chris, thank you again so much for coming in today and hanging out with us, doing this podcast. I'm super excited because I think you're part of the Hall of Fame panel later, right?
I am. I'm going to be on a panel here. I think it's at 6 o'clock.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
But thank you for coming in earlier to be on this show and just like sharing such a great story and an insight. Because again, I think a lot of our listeners who watch this will, they're kind of the people who are looking for that first step or maybe the next step. And hearing that from somebody who has succeeded as far as you have and kept, true to your guns. Because you really are a guy who's like, I know what I want to do, but like, I know the values I want to keep, and like I respect the heck out of that, man.
Yeah,
and
thank you so much.
And
thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Oh, it's been a blast. We'll have to have you back again for a part 2, man.
I would love it.
Let's do it.
All right, man.
Awesome. Well, this will conclude us on this episode for the Creative Studios podcast. If you ever want to come in and check out where we filmed this, or you want to come and do a session, we're in the heart of Franklin, Tennessee, off of Mallory Lane, and we're here every day from 11 to 10. So come by and see us. We're always doing something special. Till our next episode, I'm Jordan Mode, and we'll see you next time.